How's it going, everybody? The question I want to explore today is something that's been on my mind for a while. It's whether Trump actually won by a landslide. Is that fair to say? And I want to explore that topic a little bit, so I'm happy to get your guys' perspective in the comments, but really appreciate you joining me. Please subscribe. Thank you.
May have been Kamala Harris's moment, but this election is President Trump's time. And what I mean by that is the fact that he won with this overwhelming mandate, the fact that he won the popular vote, 1 out of every 3 votes from Americans of color, 312 electoral votes. That is a mandate for change. And President Trump is going to step in and deliver, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And I wish that there had been more from Kamala Harris to say that she wanted to work with President Trump to accomplish that. But as we see already, that President Trump is restoring our.
Okay, yeah, so that's Jason Miller saying that this is a historical mandate. A lot of people, I believe Joe Scarborough, a few others, have said that President Trump's win in 2024 is the closestly reminiscent to Reagan's huge victory in 1984. Um, yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So, first, why don't we take a look at the 2016 Electoral College map? So, we got here Donald Trump won by 306 Electoral College votes, but noticeably, he only got 46% of the popular vote. By the way, Hillary Clinton only got 48. Nobody reached the 50. Not that the 50 is required, but just interesting enough. If you look at this 2016 election, was a big surprise to a lot of people. I actually predicted this, not necessarily this measurement, but I had Trump winning the presidency in with some of my close friends. But anyway, the swing states at this time were Florida was considered swing, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and I don't know why they have Iowa here as swing, but or Ohio. I guess this is relative to 2012, but Iowa, Ohio. I don't think they were really considered swing, but Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Florida, North Carolina. Some people wanted it to be a swing. Obviously, didn't go that way. Virginia, there's always talk. Colorado, there's always talk. Arizona, there's always talk. Nevada, there's always talk. Anyway, this election was largely driven by the fact that Republicans were trying to make fractures, make dents in the blue wall. That was the key for Trump to win, and he did. When it came to the swing states, he won 3 of the 4. Didn't get Minnesota, but came close. Came kind of close to winning New Hampshire, by the way, at this point in 2016. Okay, it's 2016. Now we've got 2020. I guess they're blocking it. 1 second. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, here we go. CNN's got it pulled up for us. So 2020 was a really interesting election because, from my point of view, the reason this election was lost by Trump was largely driven by one fact, in my opinion. It was COVID-19. I think that, when some Republicans say, how did this election have the largest turnout? How did Joe Biden get the most actual votes of all time, even more than 2024? So you see Joe Biden got 81 million in 2020. Trump only got 77 million in 2024. I think the reason because of this, to be honest with you, is because people who normally don't vote voted in 2020 because the day-to-day politics started impacting them. So remember, 2020 was early in the pandemic, so people had different views than they maybe later came to. But some of those people's perspective might have been, hey, we need this pandemic to end as quick as possible so I could get to work. Because in 2020, this was only about 7 months into the pandemic. So a lot of people did not like Trump's handling at the initial stages. He had lines like, this is the Chinese flu. I think he had something about Kung Fu. But regardless, if in the early days of COVID, Trump was seen as completely mishandling it. Ironically, interestingly, Trump and his team came out with the vaccine, Operation Warp Speed, and that information wasn't really released to the public until either right before the election or after the election already happened. So some people who previously thought he mishandled it may have once the vaccine was available. Some, not everyone, obviously, people have mixed views on the vaccine. I think a percentage of them though thought, hey, now we have a vaccine, maybe we could keep Trump in office. That came really quickly. So it is interesting how they withheld that information, but neither here nor there. But I will say 2020, the electoral map looks like, this wasn't that close. It was pretty dang close, because if you're like me, you remember going to sleep and thinking Trump may have squeaked it out, or it was a toss up, and then waking up and every state that was close flipped blue. Part of that is the unusual amount of mail-in ballots because we were in the middle of a pandemic. Most of the states that were swing states were east. There was only one western swing state, and that would be, well, maybe two if you include Nevada, but Arizona. Anyway, you look here at the states that really came down to. Georgia, that's 0.3%. That is literally 12,000 votes. That, Georgia really was down to the wire. Pennsylvania, a little bit more there. That's, 70,000 votes. Fair enough. Michigan, that wasn't particularly close. Fair enough. Wisconsin was kind of close. 20,000 votes. And then Arizona was really close, about 11,000 votes. So if you get Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania wasn't super close. But if you get Georgia, Arizona, and if you just flip Georgia, Arizona, he wouldn't have won, but the result would have looked a lot closer. The Electoral College result. So this was a very close election. You could tell because the margins of these swing states were very narrow. And I knew, in my opinion, I wish I had this channel back then, I knew Trump was going to run again. He's got a big ego, and the fact is, if you lose a close election due to a pandemic that was largely outside of your control, now you could control how you handle it, but you can't control the pandemic arising per se. You're going to feel like you got kind of ripped off. You're going to feel like, hey, that was outside my control. This is a once-in-a-generation pandemic, which is fair to say. The previous pandemic that was to that extent was the Spanish flu, which was about 100 years before. So a pandemic that size hasn't been seen in a long time other than COVID. I knew he was going to say, I need another shot, because all he needs to do would be flip 20,000, less than 100,000 votes would have flipped the election. And let's just do some quick math. 100,000, 100,000 out of 330 million. Cutting off the decimals here for you guys. So that election came down to 0.03%. Not 3%, 0.03% of the general population. So 2020 was really, really close. Now, in my personal opinion, 2024 really was not a landslide election by any margin. The only vacuum in which it looks like a landslide through is the fact that everything that was considered a swing state went to Trump. But think about it. In 2024, everything that was a swing state, with the exception of maybe Florida or North Carolina, went to Biden. People didn't call this a landslide. So I don't really think it's fair to say. You look at this. Nevada. That was really noticeable. He did excellent in Nevada. Arizona, excellent. That's a huge shift. Georgia, that's close, 2.2%, but excellent. Georgia's definitely a tough state for Republicans to continue to hold. Donald Trump, 2% roughly. Pennsylvania, Michigan, 1.4. That was the closest one. Oh, no. It was actually Wisconsin was the closest, but yeah, Michigan, Wisconsin. So in 2024, I actually predicted this exact electoral map with one exception. I predicted Michigan to go to Kamala because I thought it was the bluest of the blue wall. I almost predicted Michigan and Wisconsin. I actually predicted it all red, but then I shifted one of them because I felt like, I don't think he's going to sweep them all. I had Nevada red, I had Arizona red, I had Georgia red, I had Pennsylvania red. I had Michigan, Wisconsin red initially, but then I was like, I don't think he's going to win them all, so let me change one of these two. So it was between Wisconsin and Michigan. I thought Wisconsin was a little bit more conservative than Michigan, but actually in this election, Kamala did pretty well she came very close to Wisconsin. So yeah, but I would not consider this a landslide. I don't think it's a landslide. I think the best argument you can make for it being a landslide is this map. And you may be saying, hey, if you look at this map, and basically, just to clarify, red arrows mean that the area shifted Republican, blue arrow means it shifted Democrat. So you see the vast majority shift right, with the exception of Atlanta, which I made the point about Atlanta and Georgia being a difficult state for Republicans in the future. That's going to continue. Colorado is still, not. I think Colorado is a lost cause for Republicans in the near term. Every time they're like, we could get Colorado back. The last Republican senator was Cory Gardner. I mean, good luck. You really need to have the perfect candidate. Even when they run moderates in there, they don't win. So good luck in Colorado. I don't think it's coming back anytime soon. Maybe in the next 10 to 15 years it could, but these next few cycles it would take something magical to happen. And then little parts of the Northwest, Seattle, Portland, actually, there's been a lot of backlash, so it kind of offset. It didn't really move much. Some parts of the Northwest moved left, some rural parts of North Dakota. But the vast majority, other than this Atlanta, which I think is relevant, I think Atlanta is relevant, moved right. And it's really interesting how much New York and North Jersey moved right. That's really striking. That, definitely will play a role for Republicans in New York. So this is the best argument to the election being a landslide. But it really isn't a good argument when you consider this. The Senate map. You look at the Senate map and you see a good performance by Republicans, but not a great performance. So let me explain. Montana, 52-45. Good. It's fine. I mean, it's Montana. You would hope for a little bit more. Ohio, 46.5. Pretty good. Pennsylvania. Ooh, that was literally a coin flip. It's a 0.2% win for McCormick. That was really, really close. West Virginia, yeah, that's safe. Joe Manchin's not running. It's going to Jim Justice all day. But yeah, Pennsylvania barely won. Here's the bigger argument. Okay, Republicans, let me pull up the map just to explain. Trump wins Arizona. Trump wins Wisconsin. Trump wins Michigan. You see? Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan. And Nevada. So keep those states in mind. Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan. Okay, this is the same election. This is 2024. This is Senate. Nevada, Democrat. Arizona, Democrat. Wisconsin, Democrat. Michigan, Democrat. What this tells me is, hey, Republicans, you better not be sitting on your high horse, because I think my interpretation of the election, yeah, Trump won, and he won decisively, but there's a lot of reasons why he outperformed the Senate. Number one, there's the Trump effect. You've got people who vote for Trump who occasionally don't even vote down ballot, or, every occasionally. Arizona, there were groups of people who voted for Trump and then voted for Gallega. Nevada, the same. Wisconsin, the same. Michigan, the same. So they're voting for Trump and then they're voting for a Democrat senator. What does that tell you? Well, Trump is going to be term limited. He's going to be out of office in 2028. He's not going to be able to run again. And Trump is quite a character. He's going to go down in history. He's been elected twice. He's not, a Rutherford B. Hayes type character. He's elected twice. If you look at this, if this Senate map is way more the way the election would have played out if there wasn't the Biden scandal, if there wasn't the Kamala 11th hour replacement, and if there wasn't a candidate as charismatic as Trump. This is normie Republican results. So, it was an okay year for Republicans, but not a great year. They get 53 and 47. It was a great year because they got the presidency. But this is a lot more return to normalcy. So I think the Senate tells the bigger story here. I don't think Carrie Lake was particularly a good candidate, even if you like her. She's lost a couple times now. I don't think she's a great candidate for Arizona. She has a bad reputation with some people there who I think will just never vote for her. No matter if they're Republican, there's some people she's become controversial. I thought Nevada, the candidate, was interesting. He was wounded in an accident or something with the military, wounded in war, I believe. So it's a pretty compelling story. I thought he was an interesting candidate, and clearly he did pretty well for Nevada, but couldn't get over it. Wisconsin, they got the incumbency bias of Baldwin. Same true with Nevada, Rosen. But Eric Hovde did very well. He very much may run again in some capacity for office. And then Michigan, that was a heartbreaker. That seat, you really would have hoped to win that because there was no incumbent. You got Slotkin versus Rogers. So Michigan was an open seat, and the Republicans weren't able to take it. So long story short, I just suspect that this is the reality here. You don't have some magical Republican moment. This is post-Trump. You're going to get more of this. And I think a big part of this election was a referendum on Biden. Number one, Biden was not a popular president, even if you like him. I think most people would admit that. His approval rating was, I think, at times lower than Trump's even, which really was surprising to many people because Trump's approval rating when he was in office was very low. But they have that chart that compares the two of them, and Biden finally did worse than Trump. But number two, the whole age scandal. Whether or not you agree with it, most Americans thought Biden was too old to hold office. He had a series of mishaps. He did terrible in that debate. He was stumbling over his words. He didn't provide press access. I remember for me, the biggest scandal with Biden, not really scandal, but the biggest moment where I was like, yeah, he's really definitely too old to be in office, like 100%, no question in my mind, was when he declined to do the Super Bowl interview. So usually a president will do an interview on the Super Bowl. Trump just did it a few days ago. And Biden, he might have done it the first year, but he declined to do it most of the other years. And it's very unusual, especially unusual in his final year when he was running for the presidency, to decline that. It's free press. You get it at halftime, or maybe it's the pregame, but it's the Super Bowl. It's the most eyes on TV in the United States. I think, 125 million viewers. So it's a huge missed opportunity, and when he declines that, it really doesn't make sense because you don't have to pay for it. It's free press, and it kind of cued me in to say, hey, there's something else going on here. His team must think that any interview would hurt him. And that's when you start to see him do less and less interviews, which, he really didn't give much interviews for the whole second half of his presidency, maybe even 75% of his presidency. He gave some at the beginning when he was running and when he first got in office, but, it just started to decline. And then it all culminated with the swap out. And say what you want about Kamala Harris, but I think it's fair to say she got the short end of the stick in the fact that she probably wouldn't have won a primary, in my opinion. If you had a true open primary process after Biden withdrew, it was a very short timeline, but if you had Wes Moore, if you had Josh Shapiro, if you had Gretchen Whitmer, if you had some of these people run, and it was a true open primary, not a hand-selected, Pelosi-appointed, Schumer-appointed, Democratic donor-appointed candidate, I think she would have probably lost. I don't think it would have been particularly close because Kamala had the issue of having to walk a fine line where she was Biden's vice president. So when people would ask her questions along the lines of, why now? Why are you running now? Why didn't you say something earlier? There was no good answer because she was complicit in the age scandal. She was his right-hand woman. Literally, that's what the vice presidency is. So she witnessed everything that everyone else witnessed. She saw him getting older. She saw him having difficulties. She probably personally knew that he wasn't capable to run again. And ultimately, that's why they switched him out because, let me see if I could pull up a map here. So basically, if Biden had stayed in the race, this is likely what would have happened. New Hampshire probably would have gone red. This is for 2028, but the numbers are still the same. Minnesota was going to go red. New Mexico may have gone red. And even Virginia may have been in play. This is what I think could have very well happened if Biden stayed in the race. Um, Ignore the coloration on Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Just the red states. This likely is very well what may have happened if Biden stayed in the race. So they knew. Now, this would have been a landslide to me. This is where I would have said, okay, that's a landslide when it comes to the presidency. But that's not what happened. I think Kamala saved those states. I truly do. That's why I think that they put her in there, because they saw the writing on the wall. So she got 4 states that otherwise very well may have gone Republican for the first time in generations: Minnesota, New Mexico, Virginia, New Hampshire. Oh, maybe even Maine. I didn't think about that. Maybe even Maine. I don't think New Jersey. I'm not convinced New Jersey would have done it. Definitely don't think Colorado. Colorado may have been close, but I don't think it would have done it. Illinois, Oregon, no way. The closest beyond the ones I mentioned would probably be New Jersey. They had a really close gubernatorial election with Jack Ciattarelli, and I think he's running for governor again. He nearly upset Phil Murphy. So New Jersey is getting a little bit more conservative. But yeah, I think Kamala actually did save some of the Democrats' losses if Biden had stayed in the race, just because Biden, after that debate performance, I think everybody knew, hey, like, this guy is not going to be a great president for 4 more years. And Kamala had, like I just said, the weird situation where she had to walk the fine line. And I remember on The View, they asked her, hey, Kamala, what's going to be different about your presidency? And she said something along the lines of, I'm running on Biden's legacy. Well, people didn't like that. So, initially it was the economy, but then as time went on, it really was the age, especially after that debate performance. And then once you swapped them, she didn't have the credibility because she was complicit in the age scandal. So that's just my take, and I think the whole age scandal and his unpopularity explain why this happened with the presidential election, but then the Senate election was very normy. This is very normal map. You get the blue wall still basically remains, other than Pennsylvania. And fortunately, Arizona and Nevada stay blue. This is a very normy map. And the presidential map was not very normy. So that's a little summary of why I think this was not a landslide, and why Republicans should be concerned about the midterms and should be concerned about their prospects post-Trump. Because Trump brings out voters that I don't believe J.D. Vance will bring out. He'll bring out some of them, but these hardcore Trump people, I have a tough time believing. I know some of them, and many of them never voted before Trump. That's the power of Trump. I have a tough time believing these same people, all of them, are going to come out for J.D. Vance or Vivek Ramaswamy or any of these potential replacements for Trump. Tulsi Gabbard. I don't buy it. Some of them will, but all of them probably not. But 2028 is the least of Republicans' concerns right now. They should be focused on seizing the moment and thinking about 2026, especially Senate-wise, because the Senate has major ramifications for the future, because the senators stay 6 years instead of the 2 years that the House does. So let's take a quick look at 2026 and see who's... clicked it. Yeah, so, I mean, it's really not too much of an opportunity for Republicans. They already control Maine. The biggest opportunity is probably New Hampshire. Virginia, but I don't believe it. The biggest opportunity in New Hampshire, Georgia, and secondary opportunities would be... incumbent retiring. Okay. So, yeah, actually there are a few opportunities here. They should be able to hold most of these safe states. I think Ohio is very safe. The hardest state to retain for them is going to be North Carolina and Maine. But I think Susan Collins is actually kind of popular for Maine, so if she's running again, I think she'll be fine. North Carolina is really tough. Oh, by the way, on Maine, Trump should not endorse Susan Collins. He should just stay quiet, because yeah, if there's some like Trumpian candidate, then I think it goes blue. Like if she gets primaried or something, yeah, good luck. That would be difficult. But New Hampshire's opportunity. Georgia is a major opportunity, especially if Brian Kemp runs. He's the governor of Georgia, and if he challenges John Ossoff, he's gonna win. I think it's Ossoff, not Warnock. But yeah, if Ossoff challenges him, uh, either one, I think Kemp would win because Kemp is very well liked. And New Mexico, I think it's a little bit of a dream, but who knows? If you get a really good candidate, maybe. New Jersey, probably a dream. Virginia, if you get a really good candidate, still probably a dream. So realistically, I'd say the main New Hampshire, Georgia, and Michigan, Minnesota are interesting because they're open seats. Michigan would be a better target than Minnesota historically because it's gone more conservative than Minnesota, which is interesting. But yeah, 2026 coming up. I think it's a little missed opportunity. Republicans didn't get more than 53. They really had an opportunity to get to 55, 56, and that would have been much nicer because then if you get 55, 56 and you pick one or two of these up, you're at 57, 58. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, that's basically, guys, why I think that it was not a landslide, and that's just my perspective. But I'd be really curious to hear what you guys think, and please leave your opinions in the comments and make sure to subscribe. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. This is Young and Free. Peace out.